Hello, everyone. Let's do a little bit better because it's Women's History Month. All right? Good afternoon, y'all. Thank you so much for coming out, being here today. I want to say happy Women's History Month to everyone. We know that women are powerful. We are wise. We are the creators of this world. Isn't that right, Sharon? Yes. Listen, you all are lucky I didn't come to recite the Sojourner Truth. You know, ain't I a woman? Because, you know, this day kind of reminded me when I was coming in. We used to have women's anniversary at our churches, and I was like, this looks like Women's Day. Yes. So if you all don't know, my name is Tamara Wellens. I'm your D.C. chapter president. Thank you. So Sharon and I are talking all the time, and she said, Tammy, this was a few months ago. All right, what are we doing for Women's History Month? I said, hold on, let me call WAYNA. And it's so nice to have, you know, this executive team and the board who I can call up and say, all right, y'all, what we gonna do? And WAYNA said, well, let's see about getting Ruby. I was like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing idea. That would be a perfect Women's Day celebration for us in our chapter. So you all are in for a treat. I'm so excited to welcome you here today. And let's go. All right, women, let's go.
Thank you, Tamara. I normally freestyle, but today I wrote down some things because there's so many important things to say. Welcome to Blueprints in Leadership. My name is Sharon Ingram, and I am the Executive Director for the DC chapter of the Recording Academy. I want to thank you all for being here, not only to celebrate Women's History Month, but to celebrate all of you. I'm excited about today because this is, for me, a warm-up or pre-celebration of the Recording Academy reaching our goal of adding 2,500 women to our membership body. We are almost there. The Recording Academy is 98% of the way of reaching our goal. Our goal was to reach that number by 2025, but we are set to achieve this milestone a year ahead of schedule. So I'm extremely proud of all of the strides that the Recording Academy has made in our efforts to support and uplift women. We are doing the good work. We are. I'm also proud to say that currently, over 50% of the DC chapter board is comprised of women. And I just want to acknowledge all of our board members. Can y'all wave your hands, stand up, do whatever you want to do? Yay, board! Thank you. And I also just have to take a moment to acknowledge, as I was thinking about this program, I thought about it, and I said, I want to acknowledge and thank the team that I am very fortunate and blessed to work with every day directly, who right now, in this moment, it's not always the case, made up of mostly women. I feel so grateful, so very grateful for our team that both bring their full life experience to their work each day. So our chapter intern and our GRAMMY reps are not here today, but Anna Culbertson and Chanel Young. Samaya Muhammad, coordinator for National Member Engagement and Chapter Operations, Natalia Ortiz, our DC project manager, Ash Sheehan, our production director, my boss, Tara Healy, managing director, her boss, Kelly Purcell, vice president of membership, and her boss, the woman of the hour who you will meet momentarily, Ruby Marchand, the Recording Academy's chief awards and industry office. We are really lucky, and this team is incredible. The Academy's goals have been achieved with intention, and I feel so grateful again to work for a company that has no problem elevating women and to have a board that firmly believes in the power of diversity. So give yourself a round of applause. I don't take it for granted. I also want to shout out Ryan Butler and the entire DI team, Ricky and Jessica, for all the work they do to lead and support the chapters and the entire Academy in their efforts. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the women that will lead us in conversation today. WAYNA. Looking fly. Is an Ethiopian-born, Grammy-nominated singer and actress who celebrates the cultural influences of her background through performances on screen and on stage. She is a two-time All-Africa Music Awards nominee and the co-author of the proposal that led to the Grammy Award for Best Song for Social Change. So proud of her. She received that Grammy nomination for Best Urban Alternative Performance for her remake of Loving You with another DC chapter member and former trustee, Kokai. WAYNA has performed all around the world at world-renowned venues, and in addition to her solo career, she's worked with numerous artists, but she also, I always like to say this, joins music icon Stevie Wonder as a vocalist on the Songs of the Key and Life tour. I was there, that's why I like to say it. I went to that show. And I don't know if I said this already, but she's also your DC chapter trustee and is doing amazing work. It's kind of a big deal, y'all. Now, I cut Ruby's bio down, but I'm going to say a lot of it because I think you all really need to understand how lucky we are today. Ruby Marchand serves as Chief Awards and Industry Officer for the Recording Academy, overseeing awards, membership and industry relations, Grammy U, the P&E producer, I should say that, producers and engineers wing, and the songwriter and composers wings. Prior to joining the executive team, Ruby held several elected leadership roles at the Academy. She was a member just like you. In 2004, she was elected governor and vice president of the New York chapter, where she chaired Grammys in the schools for more than 12 years. In 2011, Ruby was elected a national trustee and served for 2 terms. She was elected vice chair of the Academy in 2015 and served until 2019. Additionally, Ruby was the co-chair of ANN for 7 years and helped drive new eligibility rules related to streaming, as well as the process of refreshing fields and categories for the Grammy Awards. She served on many national committees, including membership, planning and governance, finance. Ruby previously held leadership roles at Warner Music Group, including Vice President of International A&R, Senior Vice President of Revenue and Repertoire Assurance. She's not done, y'all. She's also worked as an adjunct professor at NYU Steinhardt's Music Business Program. In 2023, she was honored at Billboard Women in Music as one of the 2023 top executives. Last but not least, she's also a musician. She studied flute at the Oberlin Conservatory and played in the Oberlin Jazz Ensemble. I am thrilled to welcome Ruby Marchand to Washington, D.C. to have conversation with WAYNA. Thank you.
How's everybody feeling today? I know we're inspired and excited to be in this beautiful space. It's so great to see your beautiful faces. We have only a limited amount of time, so we're going to jump right in. Ruby, thank you so much for being here. It's a special honor for us. So you've said that you and your staff think of the Grammys today as the new Academy. What is new and different about the Recording Academy today?
I think we all feel that the Academy has turned a lot of corners. And that's because of the energy of the chapters. It's because of the intent of our membership. It's also because of the leadership that Harvey Mason Jr. has brought. And I was fortunate enough to get a phone call from Harvey just when the pandemic was starting, back in 2020, saying, I'm building a new team. We're going to really launch a new academy, an academy based on generosity of spirit, an academy based on openness, an academy based on taking stock of where our footprint is today, who are the underserved communities, who are the people who don't see themselves within the academy. That could be membership, it could be awards, it could be a host of things. And let's approach this with excitement but humility. Let's be absorptive, let's listen, let's take it all in. Let's hear the worst of the worst of the worst, and let's rebuild where we need to rebuild, but also let's preserve what's already working, because there's already so much purpose and integrity within the Academy. And he said, "Are you in?" I said, I'm in. I signed up that minute, as soon as he made that phone call to me and described the new Academy, and also said, I'm creating a new role. And that role is the one that Sharon so beautifully described. Thank you so much for that. So the new Academy, you know, I thought it might be helpful, WAYNA, to just go back to our mission. There are 3 parts of our mission statement. And the first, and I wrote them down, so the first is to recognize excellence in the recording arts and sciences. Well, that's a subjective phrase, recognizing excellence. You and I talked about subjectivity last night. Who is recognizing the excellence? Who is it? So it's members. What about our membership body? How can we increase diversity? How can we bring voices that feel that they're not necessarily welcomed into the mix and offer parity? How can we ensure that recognizing excellence is done through a peer lens, a lens that's not based on popularity or friendship, a lens that's based truly on the integrity of the process? So that's something that the new Academy has been really dedicated to. And as Sharon mentioned, we're so close to one particular goal that we're celebrating here today, but there are many, many other goals. And one of the ways we get to those other goals is by doing something that the Academy never did before, which is to have listening sessions. So when we can identify a portion of our community that feels unseen or under-recognized, we create an event. We've done it for so many different musical genres and subgenres, from spoken word to indigenous to the Latin community to, we just did one for the dance EDM community. We've done it for jazz. We're gonna do one for opera soon. So we're looking at a broad spectrum. Again, we're going back to recognizing musical excellence. What can we do as the new Academy to welcome people? These listening sessions are webinars where we work with both staff and then chapter boards and elected leaders, or EDs, to put together the largest list of people within these communities that we can. There's no particular curation. It's really, if you're a member, come. If you let your membership lapse, please come. If you never wanted to be a member, please come. All of the above. And then we launch, and Harvey always attends these listening sessions. Ryan Butler and I put them together as a team. We have membership, we have awards there, and we know we're gonna hear some harsh criticism. We know it, that's what it's intended for. So we start by explaining why these listening sessions are gonna help us do a better job, how we're here to listen, but we're also here to answer questions. And so we talk, usually it goes for 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours, and at a certain point pretty early on, someone raises their hand and they have something to say that is gonna blast us, we know it. And everybody's watching like, oh, what are they gonna do? You know, are they gonna react in a way where they're defensive? Are they gonna react in a way where there's a kind of a denial that there might be a problem? And we love the blast because we learn from it. This is the new Academy. So we thank people and we actually say, we're gonna work on that. Because at the end of this listening session, we're gonna come up with a list of actionable points, and we're gonna hold ourselves accountable, and we're gonna come back to you, and we're even gonna get back to you with specific opportunities to apply for membership, to look at the online entry process. We may need more entries within your world, within whatever genre you're in, because if it's a matter like we had done an African listening session prior to the Best African Music Performance being created, because we needed more entries. Spoken word, we needed more entries. So the listening session is not only a way for us to learn, but it's a way for us to strategize directly with the community to make us better, to bring those entries that we need, to bring the new members forward. So these are the things that we do for that. So that's point number one. Number two, to cultivate the well-being of the music community. So again, the new Academy, how are we doing that? It's through District Advocate Day, the kind of commitment that here in DC, you see in a way that is probably as purposeful as we have anywhere in the country, in addition to Grammys on the Hill. We look at every form of mentorship, of education, where we can start to really get into the weeds on how to sustain a career, how to live by your art, live by your craft. What can we do to elevate that conversation? It could be legislation or it could be education, and it has to be all of the above. So we're totally committed to that, and we're always looking for new ways to do that. And finally, to ensure that music remains an indelible part of our culture. So that's the third part of the Recording Academy's mission statement. And we're doing everything we can. We're defining culture in the broadest way possible, in a way that the older Academy was never really committed to doing. And that has to do with globalizing. We're looking at our music experience, at the entire community of music, in a way where we want people all over the world to feel that membership is valuable, that their entries, as long as their entries are released commercially through various DSPs in America, and today that is just so easy for anyone to accomplish, that as long as those entries are present within our musical commercial landscape, that they can be entered into OEP, our online entry process. So inviting membership, inviting entries, and including more and more global voices in our conversation.
You guys see why we brought Ruby here now, right? Doesn't get any better. Amazing, Ruby. So in your role as Academy's Chief Awards and Industry Officer, you oversee both membership and awards, arguably the two most important pillars of the organization. And you are helping to lead a historic new alignment of these two divisions, which have previously worked independently of each other. How has the closer partnership of these branches helped to strengthen diversity and representation within the Academy? And what are you most excited about their closer alignment in the future?
Oh, thank you for that question. So it's really the same coin, the two sides of the same coin, because without the membership, the awards will suffer. Without the peer-to-peer respect, without the peer-to-peer determination to really focus in on musical excellence, and without the broader diversity, which includes parity for independence, let me add. That's a major, major element within the Academy these days, is figuring out all the various ways that we can celebrate independent creators, not only artists, but independent creators across the board, producers, engineers, songwriters, composers. So all of that is built into this new alignment. So we start by looking at membership as a way to bring in people whose voices have just not resonated through the awards process. And it's really working. We do this annual voting member survey. I was talking about it last night with you. And I cannot tell you how many people respond. I mean, it is amazing. We have, it could be 1,500 people, and these are voting members, who fill out a survey in which they're able to write anything that is important to them. They answer specific questions so that we can actually have some metrics and some data, and we do comparisons year by year. But they're also given an opportunity to just tell us what matters, tell us in a kind of blue sky way, what are the things that are important to them as voting members that would help the awards process grow, because it is a voting member survey, but also talk about how membership fuels the awards process. We ask some tough questions. Do you still want our awards to be genre-based? Do you feel that that's a limitation now? Do you feel that genres have become so, just so hybridized, so mixed in the way that genres now present themselves, that the categories themselves are unnecessarily limiting the way that the awards can capture musical excellence? We're not afraid to ask these questions, and we get answers, and what we're noticing is that in the answers, people are being very innovative, being very outspoken, and also people want to identify as a new member, like I've only been a member 1 to 3 years, or I've been a member for 5 to 10 years, or I've been a member for 10, 20 years plus. People are very happy to share that kind of information, which also helps us see how the footprint continues to grow for some of the younger members, because we're able to really just pair the length of membership service to some of the comments, and we see a lot of sea change coming into effect. A lot more focus on independence, a lot more focus on this issue of parity. And so we know that from the alignment between awards and membership, that to focus in on making sure that no matter how many years of service our voting members and our professional members, of course, too, that's just as important, but no matter how many years they present, that what they're telling us is taken seriously. And we work in their comments as we continue to look at goals for the year. How can we continue to evolve awards through awards and nominations, proposals, and discussion items? So it becomes like a springboard for us, like a well of deep knowledge. And that is part of this new alignment, so that we're so much better informed. And we know if we're going to propose something that feels a bit risky, like, whoa, you've never done that before. We go back to what the voting members have told us and say, yeah, but you know what? This is what people want. They want us to at least consider it. So we as staff, we don't actually bring that into fruition on our own. We will help raise those voices for people on the awards and nominations committee. It's really in the hands of our elected leaders to make sure that the elected leaders become aware of these voices, and then that can become a new conversation. And then if the A&N committee really thinks something is worthwhile, then we bring it to the Board of Trustees, and they have the final say on any kind of really sweeping fundamental change that goes on. So the process is very, very healthy in that regard.
Incredible. So Sharon mentioned that you were once a member, and we are here all members or elected leaders, and your journey with the Academy is quite dynamic. You went from being a member to an elected governor to vice president to the vice chair to trustee to head of A&N. You've done everything. You're like the Hillary Clinton of the Recording Academy. Right. So my question is to those of us in the room, how has your journey of service through this organization prepared you for the role that you have now? And what's your advice to those of us who are engaging and want to serve and get the most we can out of this experience professionally and personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I don't think Harvey would have called me the way he did if I had not been on the board and really been able to participate for so many years as a volunteer, as somebody who served on the chapter and eventually became a trustee and all that. I think that he knew that I had a real, not only an understanding, but a deep respect for the process. And sometimes there is a kind of a separation between the elected leaders and the staff side, and we never want that to ever become a point where people are, that their vision of the Academy isn't cohesive. We never want that. So Harvey's a perfect example himself of somebody who followed a similar path to mine, became chair, and then became CEO. And I'm another example of somebody who spent so much time on committees, learning the culture, participating in the culture. Learning is really the biggest word for me. And then being able to bring all that knowledge and experience to the staff side. And, I think it comes down to trust. And we know we are in an industry and we're in a creative community that is so based on trust. And trust has to be, and Tammy Hurt says this all the time, trust has to be earned. It's not just a given. It's not, there might be curiosity, there might even be some respect, like, oh, that person's done a lot. But it doesn't mean that you're extending trust. Trust has to be earned in every situation. And trusting from an elected leader and a staff point of view that there is this commonality, that yes, the role is different, but the roles complement each other. And they can complement each other better when we have lived the life, when we've rolled up our sleeves, done the hard work. There's a lot of understanding, respect, support, even empathy. I think a lot of elected leaders have empathy for staff when they see that sometimes staff is working 24/7 on events and projects and certainly Grammy Week, and vice versa. I think that the staff has such respect for trustees, for chapter presidents, for the boards around the country, as well as for the members who are on committees and really volunteer, because there would be no academy without that. So the staff feel that very, very strongly.
Yeah. Fantastic. So on the subject of being overqualified, because in a sense you are clearly qualified, we are here to celebrate Women's History Month, and there's a historic TED Talk, one of my favorite TED Talks by Sheryl Sandberg, that talks about why we have too few women leaders. And in it, she quotes a research study that says that women tend to underestimate their capacity in very objective areas, while men tend to overestimate them. Like we needed a study to tell us that, but anyway. So this played out in a personal conversation I was having with a male friend of mine who was asked to speak on a panel that he was virtually, unqualified for. And he accepted it without any hesitation, right? And I thought to myself, I wonder how many women would do the same, or would I do the same? So my question to you, Ruby, is have you ever had to push back feeling underqualified for a new opportunity? And how can we help more women better judge their readiness for leadership roles?
What a question. So the answer is yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Sometimes they call it the imposter syndrome. It goes by many different guises, and it's just basically that deep gulp where you go, can I do this? And I think we've all experienced this, but I think you're right. I think women tend to handle it differently than men. I would say I've had it at so many different times. One time that I remember very well, I was brand new. I was at Warner Music for 40 years, 40. Long time, right? So that was full-time job. That was my life. And I was head of global artists and repertoire for 25 of those 40 years. And I was very, very young when I started. And one of the first things I had to do was fly to Toronto, and I had to appear at a convention up there, a music convention, and I had to give a little speech. And I did not know how I was going to do that. I had no experience in public speaking, and I thought, oh my God, I think I'm just going to pass right out. I was so worried that I would lose my voice, that I wouldn't know what to say. My ears were starting to turn red, and I realized I got to get over this. I just have to push through. So I managed not to pass out. I was so anxious about it, and I was so glad I came through it, but then I said to myself, you can figure this out. You're going to figure this out. And I just decided to become fearless. So I think if there were a word that helps to define a lot of my attitude when I'm confronted with that moment where I feel like I don't know how to do this, I bring out that fearless quality, which we all have. It's like a muscle. You have to use it. We all know what it is to feel fearless, but we often don't reach for it. But the more we reach for feeling like we're fearless, the more we empower ourselves to take risks and to do it from a centered place. Because the fearlessness is part of our instinct. It's a survival instinct, but it's also counting on ourselves, on nobody else but us. So I reach for that when I need to. I'll give you one other example. Another example was when Warner asked me to leave the world of artists and repertoire and to take over their entire relationship at Sound Exchange. And I said to them, are you kidding me? I said, I've spent my whole career working with artists, making records. You want me to take over the metadata relationship at Sound Exchange? And they said, yeah, we think you're going to do a good job with that. So I thought, oh, okay. I had no background in any of that. And they said, just bring in a bunch of smart interns who you can train and will work with you, and let's see what happens. So I had to start with nothing. I really felt completely underqualified to do it. But then I realized that it was another door had opened that involved a lot of strategy, a lot of process, a lot of the building blocks that we all reach for all the time. It's just applying them in a new way. Mm-hmm. So I had to get over my own sense of dread and say, be fearless. You've got to just push through this. You know how to create process. You know how to see this through. And it worked. It absolutely worked. So my team and I were able to totally revolutionize Warner's relationship with Sound Exchange. And that was a major personal win for me to get over my feeling of, well, I'm an A&R person. What am I doing with Sound Exchange? You know, my own limitations in terms of how I saw myself. So I hope that's an example that just shows that we do have the power inside ourselves to reframe our skills, even if we feel challenged, even if we feel like we're under a magnifying glass and, you know, everybody's going to know when something doesn't go right. But it was helpful for me to have that honest conversation to say, I've never done this before. I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same playing field, because otherwise I thought there could be misunderstandings later on. So coming from the point of honesty, of transparency, but also imbuing myself with the power to believe that I could apply things I had learned in other environments was the way that I was able to deal with that.
So let's switch back to parity within the Academy, because most music creators will admit to having practiced their Grammy acceptance speech in the mirror. I know y'all have done it, right? The only question is, did you use a hairbrush or a remote control? And even if you've won one, you're practicing for your next one. So since our DC chapter is comprised of a lot of independent creators, and the Academy voting membership at large is also comprised of a lot of independent creators, Ruby, can you tell us more about what the Academy is doing to level the playing field for independent artists, and what you're most excited about?
Yeah, thank you. This is a major part of the journey that the Academy is committed to right now. I'm just curious, how many of you are independent artists here? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's wonderful. And I think that you would see that reflected chapter by chapter by chapter. I think that a huge portion of our membership comes from the independent creator community. And so in many ways, we've always been dedicated. But sometimes there's a kind of a misunderstanding. You know, people may feel that, that the Academy is really always looking at artists who are household names, or may feel that the Academy has relationships with major labels. And that, I would say, is truly not representative of who we are as an Academy, but it's understandable because of the glitz of the telecast. You know, it's easy to look at the Academy through a certain lens, but those of us who work at the Academy do not look at it that way at all. And so we know that there's a misperception out there about who we are, who we serve. And what we've tried to do, it's unfolding in many different ways. You know, the first way, of course, is to continue to learn from our chapter boards and to continue to learn from our members what's most important, the granular, you know, kind of grassroots approach that informs us. And that is something we do day in, day out. But we're also reaching out to organizations like A2IM, Merlin, the Music Managers Forum, you know, a lot of organizations that represent not just hundreds, but thousands of independent creators as well as independent labels. So there's a DIY as well as looking at artists who may be signed to, to any of the, the mom and pops, the 30 Tigers, all the various labels that exist. And then also there are independents who are signed through aggregators that belong to major labels like ADA or The Orchard. There's so many different types of independent relationships that the Academy cares about and continues to nurture. So we're very, very dedicated to doing that. We had a very big presence last year at Indie Week in New York in June, working with A2IM. When we just had Grammy Week, and we had an event at Grammy House, there was a special panel for independence. We invited Richard Burgess, the head of A2IM, to do the keynote. He was thrilled to do it. And this year, we were thrilled to see a press release from A2IM right after the nominations were announced that more than 50% of the Grammy nominees were independents this year. So yeah, it's huge, huge. So spreading the message, getting rid of the misperception, for the Academy to have these unique conversations with DIY artists, with the artists who are actually being represented through some of the other channels that I mentioned. All of that is relevant to creating more of a sense of parity, as well as other ways for us to figure out how to celebrate independence in our membership and also in the awards process. Independents, of course, are welcomed in all of our categories. That goes without saying. That's why that press release came out. But what more can we do? So we ask ourselves this question all the time, and I would invite all of you, if you have some thoughts about this, some ideas that you think the Academy could benefit from, just email me and let's set up a Zoom and let's talk about it, because it comes from moments like this that we have epiphanies and breakthroughs.
So we've seen a lot of women in the mix events happening lately, and most may not know that this process was initiated with a study that the Academy collaborated on, where they surveyed over 1,600 women who work in the American music industry, representing various demographics and professions. And they asked them about their challenges, and in one of the questions, it was what are your greatest challenges in pursuing a sustainable and rewarding career? Okay, and the top 5 answers to that were, can I get a drum roll? Insufficient earnings, burnout, gatekeeper culture, sexism. I can't believe that was number 4. That would have been number 1 for me. The competing demands of creative vision and generating revenue. So, Ruby, woman to woman, what have been your greatest challenges as a woman coming up in this industry, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, it's such an important question. I can't imagine any woman who has not experienced at least some of what WAYNA just mentioned. Honestly, it's just in the ether. It's just out there. And often it's inadvertent. It's just so built into the culture that people don't even realize it's happening. I had it happen maybe a month ago when it has nothing to do with the Academy, but I had volunteered for a charity event, and I was doing this event with a man, and I started to realize that as people were referring to the event, it was only about his leadership. Like I wasn't even there. It's like, oh really? I was like, oh, we're still doing that? Yeah, so it is out there, and that doesn't excuse it, but sometimes you just have to take a deep breath and realize that it's going to be a long journey. We've made a lot of progress, but often there are these sometimes subtle and sometimes not so subtle reminders that it's there. So in terms of how to deal with that, what I have found is that I fight back through mentoring. I fight back through trying to pay it forward. I fight back through trying to always take the high road and be gracious and be generous. That's how I fight back. I don't let it destroy my spirit. I don't let it bring me off a kind of philosophical high road where I feel like I think the most clearly, I access the best energy, I'm able to find joy and connectivity working with my peers, because I think that the worst part of all of those attributes is that they can really get under your skin. Yeah. They can really start to make you question whether you're ever going to achieve the things you want to achieve, or at some point maybe find that you're no longer confronted with those negative elements. And I've come to see that I can't control those negative elements. I can't wish them away. I can't nobody can just make them go away. So how do you maintain your strong spirit, your integrity, your sense of purpose? And you and I talked about the word purity, right? Because a lot of it is when it starts to erode the purity that you may have in your heart for what this academy means, what our musical culture means. And I've just decided that I'm not going to let it get to me. I'm just going to I'm going to give back even more. And when you have that mindset, that's why I chaired Grammy in the Schools for so long. I would say of all of my activities as an elected leader and even as a staff person now, where I got the most sense of joy and accomplishment was working with these high school students year in, year out, and having one day dedicated to their dreams, their hopes before they chose a college. You know, they all loved the idea of being in music. Maybe they weren't quite sure if it was something that they could justify to their parents or even sustain themselves. And while nobody could promise them that, you know, they could sustain a long career in music, we could bring out a sense of self-confidence, a sense of, you know, there's something here I'm not going to defer, I'm not going to ignore. We could affirm that it was a really potential path in life where they would develop community. And that's how I fight back. I do it through looking at the next generation. That's why I love overseeing Grammy U, because I think that for many of us, the best way is to become the person who does not become impacted by all of those negative thoughts.
So is that very much about a circle, surrounding yourself with a circle of people who you trust and who you can share openly with, and men and women who are allies?
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. You know, sometimes you form these circles through humor, right? It's just we're all in this together, and there's just this kind of, you know, let's find ways to keep each other on that high road, right? Because none of us is an army of one. You know, we can't just subsist and just sustain ourselves without feeling that other people are supporting us, but also inspiring us. So I think that those conversations and those circles, you know, and for me, I have and I'm sure many of you do the same. I have a lot of circles for different parts of my academy work, circles for different ways to support myself spiritually or emotionally, as well as in terms of career. And I think that the more circles that we create that we feel are safe spaces where we can be our true selves and not feel as though there is something threatening about it, that we feel like we're feeling really comfortable here. That's something that I also think can start at a very, very early age. And when I was teaching at NYU, I was always telling the students I was with, you are your first circle together. We're in this class together. You should really find some connectivity and support. You may know each other for decades. You may be together for decades. You just don't know it yet. You're just sitting next to each other. But little do you know that you're going to be creating an ecosystem where just supporting each other is going to sustain you as your challenge through your career. So part of it is also bringing that awareness to people that they're already in their career. They're doing the work. They may be students, but they have made a choice, and there's a whole set of relationships to support that choice, not just their elders, like the professors, but also their colleagues, you know, the person sitting right next to them.
So another subject that's important to a lot of women is the balance of work and family. And we know that that's difficult for women in any profession, but especially in the music industry. And survey respondents from the Women in the Mix study indicated that less than 20% had children under the age of 18. And more than 50% said that they had chose to either not have children or to have fewer children than they wanted because of their careers. So Ruby, how have you been able to balance your professional life with your family life? And what is the Academy doing to help more women strike a good work-life balance?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Well, when I read that study, I was so shocked at how women feel that they have to make this choice. Can I have a family? Do I need to just commit to my career? We all have seen that happen around us, where we see women who are really feeling very ascendant in their career and so magnetized by that, and then time goes on and you realize, they haven't had children, whatever, maybe that's a personal choice. Everyone makes their own choice, right? But when you look at a survey like that, you realize, is this something that has truly just disrupted a person's ability, a woman's ability, to embrace a more balanced type of life with children, with family? And while it's a personal choice, I do think that many of us read that particular point in the survey and we're very troubled by it. There's no way to truly interpret it except to say that it was a big surprise, very big surprise. So for me, I would say that because I've been in the business now for a long time, I was able to initially balance my work at Warner, which involved a lot of travel too, because it was international A&R. So my work with Warner for 25 years, and I have 2 children who are grown now, they live in Denver, and to really feel like I was truly with them. And I would really pull the plug when I got home and not bring my work and all the craziness home into my family environment. And I know that helped me maintain balance, and it also helped my kids never feel as though somehow family life was competing against the professional life that I had. And when I started to really engage with the New York chapter, my kids had already reached a certain age where they were doing sports and doing this and doing that. So it's like, I have a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. And that's what ended up happening, is that as my kids got a little bit older, I found that I had more time to volunteer for the chapter. So GRAMMY in the schools and becoming VP of the chapter and then becoming a trustee. So I was able to take advantage of the fact that my kids had reached that age where they were more independent and really would not have wanted to be around so much. And also to be able to say, well, that frees up a little bit of time and energy. It was not a conscious choice. I just found myself gravitating towards the chapter and towards the Academy in a way that really made sense for me. And little did I know that I would actually, and this is, I think, one of the most beautiful aspects, as you're asking, how does the Academy support this? I did not realize that the Academy, as a volunteer, was giving me the opportunity to learn how to be a leader. I wouldn't say that I was, I would say I was an executive at Warner, but I was not a leader at Warner. Honestly, there's a big difference, big difference. And I found that the Academy, through things I really cared about, like education and mentorship and going to GRAMMYs on the Hill, and then learning what some of these national committees were about, membership, awards and nominations, I found that I could raise my hand and people respected what I had to say, just like I was learning from them. It was very natural. I had no agenda. It had no kind of sense of goal at all. And I felt like, I can really just not only be myself at the Academy, but I feel supported as a woman, and I feel supported by my peers. And some of my most important enduring friendships have come out of simply the Academy part of my life, not anything having to do with 40 years at Warner and all the other stuff that I've done. It's just, we have been warriors for the cause. We have fought through thick and thin to help people within the Academy really, feel the sense of why the Academy is so important, so unique, so valued. So the Academy has created, I think, an atmosphere, an environment where people can naturally gravitate and find that others share a common goal, and suddenly there is strength. Suddenly there is a sense of purpose. And if it can be combined with having enough time, time is always the big variable here. How much time have we all got? Time to have work-life balance, time to focus on sustaining ourselves on every level, and time to put into building trust and building those relationships and those circles, and then just time to give to the academy. So all of that becomes a bit of a lifelong journey for all of us. It's a really nice arc. And one thing I love about the academy is that we can give, and we can also at times have to maybe pull back a little bit because maybe there's a new baby, or maybe there's a new job or a new project. And the academy is always there and always understanding and always feeling like we so appreciate you for whatever you can do, whatever you can give. And if you're able to give more in the future, there will always be a place for you here. There's no sense of loss, shall we say, when life asserts itself in a way where we have to change our relationship with the academy. The academy is always so grateful for the time that our members are able to give, and often that can change from time to time, but you know that the academy will always welcome you back if you're able to offer more. And I think that's part of how the academy sustains women.
Fantastic. Ruby, thank you so much for all of your vulnerability, wisdom, generosity of spirit. We want to definitely take an opportunity to get questions from you guys. So you've heard a bit about Ruby's background and all she oversees with the academy. So who has a question for our guest?
So the way I focus on Grammy U, there's a woman named Jessie Allen who oversees Grammy U with 2 other people. It's a small team, but they're mighty. They're pretty amazing. And we were able to work with our DEI team, Ryan Butler, and with Amazon on creating scholarships for HBCU students. And that was our initial footprint, and we started to do some, it was actually called the Love Tour. So Rico Love was involved in helping us have a presence at some of the HBCU schools. And that's something that I just spoke to Jessie about. It's funny you should bring it up. I'm really glad you did, because we just spoke about it maybe 3 days ago at South by Southwest. We had breakfast, and we actually were talking about how can Grammy U increase its presence at HBCUs. So you're absolutely right. I think we can do more. We're aware of it, and we want to do more. We've gotten off to a good start, but we need to build it, and build it in a way that we can sustain. Because of the issue that you're addressing, we changed Grammy U last year. So until last year, Grammy U was only for matriculated college, university students, and everybody else just had to figure it out. And we always knew that this was a huge flaw, not just for Grammy U, but just for the kind of trajectory, the kind of path that the academy needs to lay out for people who may never go to college, or maybe they only go part-time, or maybe they take time off and it's more than a year. But on top of that, for people who graduate from college and are not quite ready to qualify for professional or voting membership, that was our biggest concern. So it was a concern of our Board of Trustees as well. And the board unanimously voted to create a new membership tier for Grammy U, which is for people who are under the age of 30, so it's, let's say, from 18 through 29. Whether they're in college or not, there is now a program at Grammy U to help provide the kind of education you're talking about. Grammy U produces over 100 events a year. It never stops. But a specific new tier that talks about how to even know when you're ready to apply for professional voting membership, and what might be something to hold you back. What is it in your profile, so to speak, as an active music creator or music professional where you're still not quite ready for voting or professional, but you don't want to lose that connection with the Academy if you've been a part of Grammy U. So we've now created this new way to focus in specifically on what you're talking about. We called it a soft launch because we're, as I said, it's 3 people working on Grammy U, but we're very, very dedicated to this. And if you're no longer a Grammy U member, I would recommend that you go back to Grammy U and look at this new type of membership that's so new, because I think it exists exactly to answer the question that you're talking about. Ooh, yeah. I wouldn't say that I have a book that's like, my go-to book, or, even a movie that's my go-to movie. I would say that I just never stop reading, and it's whether it's a book, it's a bunch of different types of online environments where I'm always going to keep myself informed. When I just wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is, in my inbox, I look at all the various sources of, it could be just a headline or it could be a full article that just continues to educate me. I never stop looking for things, and I cannot tell you how many things I forward to Harvey and other people, and we all do that for each other. So, we sort of tap into the different types of information that keeps us really, really current. I have found, I would say that for me, the way that I've really just immersed myself has really more been through traveling around the world and learning about different cultures and different ways that the industry is actually not only maintained, but also is able to evolve in different parts of the world, and hearing different points of views from different types of creators, spending time with a mastering engineer, a mixing engineer, people who are always behind the scenes as songwriters or different types of artists. So part of my learning experience has been not just the books or the online posts and the articles and movies, but also just more experiential, so that I try to always maintain a real openness and curiosity. And usually in these conversations, I learn so much, and people may think they're learning about the Academy or learning about me, but I end up feeling like I've learned even more just because I have a unique viewpoint from somebody that really helps me. And even just in this beautiful afternoon together, I've had a lot of little conversations along the way where I've just said, oh, I didn't know that. That's wonderful. Always learning, always open. It's like keeping your antenna totally open all the time. There's no need to ever shrink it. This is that variable of time and energy. Like, keep your energy up, know to use your time wisely, and just stay really open to things coming often through sources that you couldn't have anticipated when you woke up that morning, not just the ones that are in your inbox. I'm going to answer that with two answers. The first is that I think I would try to reassure my younger self that I could still be myself as I got older. It's really important. That I wouldn't have to sell out. I wouldn't have to tamp down the things that I feel most important about, that I could still be the same person no matter what came my way. At that point, who knew where I was going to be 40, 45 years later, right? But just say it's going to be okay. You don't have to worry about that. So that would be the first thing. The other thing, and I said it earlier in a different context, is that there's not a single skill, a single motivation, a single relationship that doesn't continue to provide value. It's all important, all of it. And trying to hold that ever present, right? Awareness, that even when you're starting out, that conversation that you had with somebody that seemed so random, it's not random. It's never random. So keep that consciousness high, and suddenly you realize that you feel very much a part of something that's bigger than you are, but you also feel very grateful for your own awareness. This is how you develop the fearlessness. Take your awareness to the next level. Eventually you become fearless. I would just say, as a skill, to just feel as resilient and flexible. Like, you want to interpret your strengths in a way where they don't limit you. So, you've made an amazing life decision to come here from New Zealand, and I would say that. That kind of, and I used that word earlier, like a warrior spirit, right? I think that for all of us, especially women, we have to look at that as something that can be really applied to different situations all the time, so that rather than focus in on one specific skill, because that can be very hit or miss sometimes. It can be a very jagged road if you do it that way. To look at that specific skill in a way where it can be very malleable, very flexible, very fluid. I think the more fluid we are, like the willow tree that can bend in the wind and then comes back up. If you look at your prized skills, and just know that you can apply your prize skills in a variety of situations. I think that that's how to sustain the long arc of a happy and successful career. That's just my personal take on it. The one thing I didn't mention about GRAMMY, which is exactly what you're talking about, is a very, very strong mentorship program, which now applies to the new membership tier as well, which includes so many professional members. So thank you for that. So in any given year, we might have over 2,000 different mentors from both the professional and the voting member ranks who have a one-on-one relationship with a mentee who's part of GRAMMY. So, and the GRAMMY has about 6,000 members at this point, and plus about 15,000 alumni. So it's really strong. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think that, as we talked about earlier, we need to find other ways for professional members to feel seen and recognized within the Academy in a way that can help people. We're always talking about sustaining careers, strategies, opportunities, and professional members have so much to offer. And we haven't created enough, in my opinion, tangible programs. We have the GRAMMY one in place through a mentorship lens, but there should be others. So I'm really glad that that you're here today and that you've brought this up, because we are really looking at that very seriously now. So thank you. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for signing on to that proposal. And there may be other people here who are involved in other proposals too. So March 1st is the deadline for any member to submit a proposal for awards and nominations consideration, and the committee meets next month. So in most cases, what happens is that the proposals are reviewed by staff to see if there are any elements that have not been addressed, so that the A&N committee can actually discuss the proposal. If there's a piece missing, we always want to let the proposal writer know. And we're at that point now where I think probably by Monday, any proposal where there needs to be perhaps additional information offered, whatever, all the proposal writers will know. And for the most part, most proposals, if they have all the elements that we need, they are presented to A&N at the time, and then A&N will review it. So I think that if you haven't yet heard back about that, it probably means that the proposal is moving ahead, and as you intended, in other words, and then it would go directly to the A&N committee, and then they have every opportunity to discuss it.
Okay, I think we've reached the conclusion. I just want to say on behalf of everyone here, Ruby, it's been such a pleasure having you and getting to know you. I have seen you in action, being the strong, reasonable, empathetic leader that you are, and it's been such a joy to get to know the person behind that there is an intentionality there, a process there, a life journey that helped create that, and it's an inspiration to me personally, and I hope now everyone can have a taste of that. Ruby started out talking about the three pillars of the Academy. Recording excellence, making sure that music stays an indelible part of our society and the well-being of our community. These are ambitious goals, truly ambitious goals. And it can't only be carried by dynamic leaders by Ruby. It really needs all of us, all of our engagement, to point out the omissions that you see here, to make proposals, to get involved, to contribute yourselves, your heart. And you can see what comes from this long line of service. But it's all of us that make the difference, right? So I'm so proud to see all of you here, and I hope you'll continue to stay engaged. Ruby, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, first, thank you, WAYNA. Really, you're amazing. And I just want to thank Sharon and Natalia, the entire team. Really, I couldn't be more honored. But I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank this chapter. I have so much admiration for this chapter. WAYNA and I worked so closely together to create Best Song for Social Change. And I think of that as the heart and soul of what this chapter represents. It's about changing the world through music, how to do it in a way that has true purpose, that can really resonate beyond just our community into the entire world. And when I think about the thoughtfulness that this chapter has, but it's combined with activism, it's combined with a real sense of accomplishment. I think that this chapter is the best of the Academy. I really do. Thank you.